Hi, my name is Vicki Ellis, and I am the Executive Director of Heritage Ranch Christian Children's Home. And today, what I am going to be talking about is something that we refer to at the ranch as choice and consequence. It's the discipline model that we use with our boys at the ranch and that I actually use personally with my kids as well. So I'm very familiar with it. So I'm going to dive right in. So the first focus and the key tenet of using choice and consequence is personal responsibility. Teaching your kids to learn that they are responsible for their own choices. One of the key ways that we do that is really focusing on cause and effect of decision making and your kids understanding that everything that they do in life will have some sort of consequence or impact, either positive, negative, or for not. So one of the things my dad used to tell me when I was a kid that always stood out to me was no consequence, no change. And he's right. If we could speed without getting speeding tickets, there's a good chance a lot of us would speed. And if you could go to work late every day and have no consequence from your boss, I have a feeling a lot of people would sleep in more often. So this whole concept of focusing on choice and consequence as a discipline model is about really focusing on transferable methods that are going to be functional and impactful when your kids are adults, because this is the way that the world works. Our choices have consequences, and so that's what we want to teach our kids to learn. So the biggest deal in really focusing in on how you implement choice and consequence is to make sure that the consequences you're going to use are logical and natural. So if my child chooses to fall asleep in class, a natural consequence is he's probably not going to be really prepared for his test. A logical consequence might be that I'm going to put him to bed earlier that night. So the goal is to ensure that consequences put in place are applicable to a real world experience so that your kids learn this concept for long term. The question we want our children to be asking themselves when we are implementing discipline is, how is the next decision I make going to affect me? As a parent, if your child is thinking through the consequences in their actions, then you're winning even when they make a poor choice. So if you're using choice and consequence, the biggest deal is you've got to be focused on the long game, the long-term healthy goal, which is that your kid is learning how to problem solve and make decisions. You can't focus on immediately compliant kids, and you can't focus on kids that are always going to be emotionally happy with you, because when you're setting boundaries in place and you're allowing them to deal with the consequences of their actions, they may be temporarily emotional. The reality is you're setting them up for success long time. So what are the guidelines for giving choices when you use choice and consequence? First things first, make sure you always select choices that you're okay with. If you want to say to your child, if you choose not to get off Xbox, you're going to lose Xbox for 3 nights. If you're not okay with them staying on and losing it, you shouldn't give them that consequence. Because the way choice and consequence works is like, hey, you chose to stay on, great. They get the 15 minutes or the 10 minutes or whatever it is of Xbox. What you know as a parent that they're going to lose it for 3 days is that they're going to learn the consequence from that choice longer term. So don't pick something you're not okay with them choosing. Make sure that you're okay that they're going to experience the consequence of that choice. Another big deal is never give choice when a child is in danger, okay? That's the time to just say, do this, do that, and be directive, okay? Also, don't give a choice unless you are willing to make a choice for the child in the case that he doesn't choose. So if I say to my child, if you do this, then you're choosing that, and they don't make a decision, okay, well, as a parent, I'm responsible for making sure there's some sort of outcome. So really just honing back in on this whole concept of choice, the biggest deal is that you are empowering your kids to make decisions, understand cause and effect, and take personal responsibility for what they do. In life, everything we do has impact, and that's what we want to teach our kids. We just want to teach them over time that the best choices create the best outcomes so that they decide that it is in their best interest to make those choices often and early. So, what language do you want to focus on? It's super simple. If you do this, then you are choosing that. Or when you do this, then you are choosing that. So, hey, to your child, when you clean your room, then you will be able to go to your friend's house. When you do your chores, then you will be able to go to a movie. What are you teaching them? You're teaching them that their choice creates a dependency on what action is taking. If you don't go to bed on time, then you will have an early bedtime. Great thing about choice and consequence, honestly, is you don't even have to follow up With my kids, what I've found is that if they just decide to go to bed late and I know they're going to bed late, I don't go upstairs. I don't get in the power struggle. The next night I just say, hey, it's time to go to bed early. And when they look at me, I say, well, that's the decision you made last night when you stayed up late. And they might roll their eyes, but they already know that they made that choice, and they go up to bed. The reality is, over time, what it does is it creates you not getting into the power struggle, because if you preset things and they understand what their choices are going to create, then you don't have to prompt and remind them over and over again. You just make sure it's clear. So to my child, if you choose to stay on your phone past 10 o'clock when you're supposed to be off, and I check your text messages, which I will, then if I see that you were texting and the consequence was losing your phone for 2 days, I will just walk up to my child and say, hey, I need your phone. And they look at me and probably like, oh, crap, you figured out that I was texting past the time I was supposed to. So it's really powerful because it puts a responsibility squarely in your child's hands, and it takes away the power struggle. And they learn that the choices they're making when unwise are met with consequences that they don't like. So I'm going to go through just a few brief examples, because I find that it's really helpful as a parent to just have some examples of what this would look like. And so I'll go through those now and hope this will be helpful in you really shifting your parenting style to focusing around how you can set up consequences in advance and allow your children to make choices and deal with the outcomes of them. So let's just give like an easy example. So let's say that you tell your child that they are allowed to ride their bike, but they can't ride it past a certain point on your street. And so you come outside, they're past the point on the street they're not supposed to go to, and so you had set it up that if they do that, that they're going to lose bike privileges for 2 days. It's a very logical consequence. They misused the bike, and so now they don't get to use it. They made that choice. So what about your child is supposed to clean their room every night by 6 o'clock before dinner. And so you've preset that if they choose not to clean their room, that they are going to have to do an extra chore. So dinner time comes, you check their room, they haven't cleaned it. So now they have to do an extra chore. It's logical, because what I would tell my kids is, if you aren't able to have the discipline to clean your room when you're supposed to, then I'm going to give you extra practice by giving you more chores to do until you can learn how to do it effectively. So that is what I would consider logical. And so the natural consequences in life, which I find to honestly be the more powerful ones as kids get older, are things like, if I tell you that you need to do something and you don't follow through on cleaning, and I have to go check 3 times, what does it mean? It means that we're losing trust and we're not building trust. I told my current 15-year-old when he was probably 9, if you can build trust with me in the little ways over time, then when you're 16 and you're 17, you're going to have a lot of freedom, because what I'm going to know is that you can manage your choices well. If you are 13 or 14 years old and you consistently don't clean your room, you consistently don't do your schoolwork when you're supposed to, then why would I let you go to a party where there's not going to be any adults a year down the road, or a slumber party, and you're asking me to trust you to make good choices when I have a history of you not making those? So I think the biggest thing and most powerful thing as a parent is what you're teaching kids is that their choices will have impact, and will have impact long term. If they can consistently make good choices, then the logical outcome is that they're going to have more trust with you, and so they're going to have more freedom. Another example, I know everybody deals all the time with cell phones. If your child has a cell phone, we have a cell phone contract with our kids. Only my oldest actually has one, because we wait until our kids are around 14. But we have the contract, and it's very clear. If you do certain things on your phone, then you lose use of it. One of the things is, it just is a reality of, like, you have the privilege of using a phone, and in today's world, having access to the internet and a lot of things. And if you can't handle that, my job as a parent is to make sure that the logical consequence is that you don't have it. So what I want you to really take away from this video and this style is that your goal is to teach your kids to think about their choices and minimize power struggles, and just teach them that the world works in a really logical, functional manner. And if you can build a relationship where they will think about their choices and they'll build trust, then it's going to create a lot of freedom and productivity for them long term. So again, I hope this has been helpful. My name is Vicki Ellis, and I am the Executive Director of Heritage Ranch, and I appreciate you tuning in.